I've been watching clips of this in the last couple of days. Bernie Sanders went on the Joe Rogan podcast to talk about climate change. Man, did he get destroyed. I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer to this. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not an expert. Then why are you trying to change the world when you can't answer simple questions if you're not an expert? Why are you out there bumping your gums, Bernie, telling us we need to, do this and do that and go EV and get rid of, coal-fired power plants and sit in the dark and all this other nonsense? Maybe you should get some facts that support your position. Maybe that'd be a nice way to go. Marc Morano is the executive editor of ClimateDepot.com. He joins me now. Marc, good morning. Welcome to the program. Glad you're here.
Good morning, Steve. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
I just saw a compilation. I'd play it for you, but I think I just did it pretty well. I don't know. Don't have the answer. Not an expert. There it was over and over and over. Good God, Bernie doesn't know anything about this stuff, does he?
No, he was ill prepared. And I guess this is where we're watching in real time a major shift in populism in this movement, both left and right. Now, there's a lot of what Bernie Sanders goes on and he talks about, BlackRock and other stuff. Just some stuff conservatives could maybe agree with. But here's where he is completely, and a lot of other issues too. When it comes to climate, they don't realize that this is now no longer even popular among a lot of the left-wing base. Sure, you still have your AOCs but it's a dwindling base of people, including Bernie, including some of these young activists. But what they don't realize is people's eyes have been opened since COVID lockdowns. And when I say people, I mean Naomi Wolf, Jimmy Dore, RFK Jr. RFK Jr. used to call for jailing skeptics. And he was actually out there after COVID, and he said, I won't talk about climate change anymore because it's been hijacked by the World Economic Forum and the UN for totalitarian.
That's right. In fact, I don't know if it was hijacked by them. Mark, it might have been invented by them.
Yes,
and then funded by the Russians and communist China. They're the ones that pay the bill for all this indoctrination. Look, we call it the war on energy, the war on this war. It's the war on thinking. That's what we've got here. It's the war on thinking because the science is settled. And if you disagree with the science, there's something wrong with you. No. I'm done with that. That whole, you don't know the science. Neither do you, Bernie. And yet he'll guarantee you, Mark, he'll go out at his next little rally where 100 people show up and preach about climate change again, even though he just got dismembered by Joe Rogan. Go ahead.
They keep going to the well. All right, here's what happened on Joe Rogan, specifically and scientifically. He was shown this shock chart, and I still can't believe Jeff Bezos' Washington Post allowed this by. But the headline in the Washington Post, this is from fall of last year, 2024, scientists have captured the Earth's climate over the last 485 million years. 485 million years. Here's the surprising place we stand now. And they presented a graph of global cooling. They showed that in the last half a billion years, that the Earth is now in its coolest part that we've ever been in. Now, this follows up on a National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration data too during the Biden administration, hardly a group of climate deniers, showing the exact same thing. This follows what I've written about in my books, what skeptical scientists have been talking about for decades, that we are currently, geologically speaking, in one of the coldest periods of Earth's history, its entire history. In other words, 90% of Earth's history has been warmer than today with higher CO2 levels. That couldn't support ice at either pole. Today, we have ice at both poles. We are currently in the cycle of our Earth in the coldest 10% period. This people cannot wrap their heads around. We're in the lowest carbon dioxide
I can
level.
wrap my head around it. Let me be real clear about this, Mark. You know what happens when it's warm and it's wet? Things grow. Things like corn and rice and wheat, which feeds lots of animals too. It creates a food supply. That's what it creates, a food supply, Mark. Warm and wet creates food. And so look, 11,700 years ago, roughly, where I'm sitting, there was a half mile of ice right here. There was an ice sheet right here in Michigan, where I'm sitting not too far from Detroit this morning. And the end of the last ice age began to close in. And we got this thing called the Great Lakes out of it. What a horrible thing. I'm a true believer in climate change because I love the Great Lakes, Mark. I'll give you that.
Yes, and you're exactly right. That was the face of the glacier probably went down as low as the southern Pennsylvania at that time. And people say, well, sea level's rising, Florida. Sea level's been rising for the last 10,000 plus years since the end of the Little Ice Age. On every metric, Steve, this is a con. Bernie is literally talking old talking points that I don't even think his base is responding to anymore. Hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, wildfires, droughts, heat waves, either no
Blah,
trend,
blah, blah.
trends. Even Biden's EPA showed the 1930s heat waves as 8 to 10 times hotter than anything we're experiencing today. But the media will say, we had a record temperature today. What they do, Steve, it's like a casino. You walk into a casino, you see all these slot machine winners with the big cardboard checks. They won $500,000, they won $2 million, and you get the idea everyone's a winner. Well, what they've done with the climate is they want you to think every weather event is unprecedented. No, it's
False.
not. In fact, weather extremes are declining.
That's right. Less tornadoes now. The biggest season for tornadoes in America, the 1970s, mid-70s. For hurricanes was the mid-1950s. Back in the 1950s, we also had one day in Hillsdale County, south here, 2 F5s back-to-back the same day in the same path. If that happened today in America, my God, the climate change Nazis would be out there running around screaming with their heads on fire. Oh, by the way, we haven't had an F5 in Michigan since 1973, just for the record. I'll give you the last word real quick.
Well, I got to go to Greenland in 2007 with Bernie Sanders. And we went on I was working in the Senate. I stood in for Senator James Inhofe. And I got to argue with Bernie, but it turns out Greenland was actually as warmer in the 1930s and 40s. The whole trip was a scientific propaganda. Everything they tried to portray was inaccurate. And by the way, they killed a polar bear on that trip when I was there in July 2007, because
nice,
polar bears are dangerous predators that kill people. The Greenland government had no problem killing it. Well, the Democrats there, Barbara Boxer, these are the most beautiful, majestic animals. Yeah, is that why they just slaughtered one in the town? Because they were potential to harm humans.
Educate yourself at climatedepot.com. Be armed with facts, not fallacy. climatedepot.com. You'll have this guy, Marc Morano, to thank. Marc, thank you for being here as always, my friend.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
There you have it. climatedepot.com. Find out more. Be educated. I'll be back.